We're live on Facebook.
Hey guys, welcome to the TCG Pro Show. I'm Brad, and we're back this week for another episode. I'm joined by my co-host and father, Don Williams. Welcome.
Hello.
And this week we have a special guest, Roger from Roger Scheck Construction. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk a little bit about construction today.
One of our favorite subjects.
It is
right?
one of our favorite subjects. If you follow us at all, you know that we have a long background in this, and we're going to enjoy that. And the interesting part about this show is I think we're going to tie in some of the concepts that every small business owner, especially every service business owner, needs to know, and that's tying media and their construction business together, because if you're not there, you're going to get left behind, especially when things slow down. And we want to bring you some of that information. So
a lot of people are real busy right now, and they think, I don't really need that. I've got all the calls that I need, but things will slow down. I mean, I don't know whether you've been around long enough. We've certainly been around long enough to see the peaks and the valleys in this. And so when's the best time to actually get your name out and to advertise?
When you have the money to do it. When you have the means
and before you actually need it.
Before you need it.
Yeah.
There is definitely a long cycle between starting marketing efforts and reaping the benefits from
Absolutely.
them. But let's start a little bit with you and what you do. Tell us a little bit about your business, Roger.
I've got a remodeling business in Winston-Salem. We are known for kitchens and bathrooms primarily, additions, but we're known as the kitchen and bathroom guys. That's who calls us. And I started flipping houses. It's a long story, but I was in Los Angeles and I bought a foreclosure. And I had a background in construction with my father. I took that and used it to renovate both bathrooms. We got cast on a TV show where they remodeled the kitchen. And my dad saw my work and said, the filmmaking thing doesn't work out for you, you can always go be a contractor in North Carolina. And I said, if that happens, I'm going to kill myself. And 3 months later, my house was on the market, and I had bought 2 foreclosures here to start the flipping process.
You got to be so careful about saying what you're not going to do. Before the show started, we were telling you a little bit about our story. My wife was telling you a little bit about our story. We talked a lot about, we weren't going to date, and we were never going to get remarried, and we definitely were never going to have kids, and all those things have come true. So always be careful to say what you're not going to do. You did say you did grow up around construction, though.
Yeah, my dad had a very long career with the oil industry. He started with Getty and then Skelly, then Getty, then Texaco, then Chevron. He put, I think, 38 years in with them, but he always wanted to be a carpenter, and we spent our weekends and days off remodeling my grandparents' house, remodeling our house. My dad stick-built our kitchen. So when I was 8 years old, I was carrying half bales of shingles up the ladder because that's all I could carry, holding T111 up so he could nail it. So I didn't want to do it, and I wanted to be an artist. And at one time it was a musician, and then I found photography, and then I found filmmaking, and I've done all of those things, and now I'm a contractor to finish paying off the student loans.
So, looking back now, it's interesting what you say, you didn't want to do it. I grew up around construction too. Dad, you've been building houses since I was 3 or 4 years old?
Probably.
And you were doing home improvements before that. And I remember growing up on the job site, by the time I was old enough, I'd help him out in the summers. And my memories of that as a child were hot, sweaty days, sweeping houses, with a shovel or broom or whatever menial work needed to be done. And I didn't like it. And I know I must have told you many times as a teenager that I'd never, ever get into that. Is that fair?
That's bordering on fair.
And but what's interesting is, I didn't go out and pursue a lot of other things, but I did find that school and traditional education just were not for me. It seemed like a lot of, what's the short way of saying this? A lot of wasted time to learn a lot of things that didn't really matter. And I asked Dad, things were going very well at that time in the early 2000s, and I asked you if I'd come work with you. I got my contractor's license, and I found that there is this huge rewarding side in it. Is that kind of what you found now that you've dove into it and you're doing this full time now? Is it something that you can express your artistic side with?
Absolutely. I love helping people. I love the service aspect of the job. When people are appreciative, I've got clients that seem to think I owe them something, and those are challenging. But for the most part, people really appreciate what I do, and I like helping people out. My long-term goal would be the Mike Holmes of North Carolina. I want to make it right, fix things that I see a lot of people get burned by contractors. I got a call the other day. A woman said, this guy remodeled my kitchen and he's not coming back. And I said, how much did you pay him? And she said, $13,000. And I said, I can't put cabinets in for $13,000. You should call the police. Yeah. So I would love to be able to step in and help that woman. I can't do that because I don't have the funds Mike Holm does. But
that's interesting that you say that you like to help people, and what drives you there. I had a similar experience in home improvements where I'd be in a lot of people's homes, and so many times people are taken advantage of. So they give deposits, too big of deposits up front, don't really check the people out. They're just happy to get somebody to do the work. And just way too many times it seemed like I was hearing that same story over and over.
Absolutely.
People get hurt.
Yeah, well, it's given contractors. You've got all the jokes about contractors, and there's a reason for those jokes. And I'm trying to break that stereotype. I think there are some really good guys out there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But you got to be smart. Ask for references. If their bid seems too cheap, there might be a reason for that. And coming from reality television and seeing the way stuff's made and the way stuff's sold, there's a lot of disinformation on shows. I won't name any names, but there's some big shows out there throwing numbers out saying, how much to take this load-bearing wall down? Well, that's $2,000. In what universe? And I come in and it's 8 or 9, and they're like, but they did it for $2,000 on this show. Yeah. Well, call the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Right?
We also do home inspections, and it's really interesting the things we see and the things that we hear. And I'm not sure that the DIY HGTV craze has done a lot of good. I think it's, like you said, it's maybe has set a lot of false expectations.
Yeah.
And it gives people a lot of ideas of what can be done, but the reality of actually getting that done.
The financial aspect is just way off kilter.
Yeah.
And and then some of the things we see, I cringe when we go in a house and I can start to get that feel, and I'm like, this person renovated themselves. We were in a house not that long ago, and they had replaced not all of it, but a portion of the plumbing drain with electrical PVC conduit. So needless to say, it leaked in a lot of places.
Sure.
But it had granite.
Yeah, but it had granite, and it was cute.
Yeah, the kitchen had granite in it. I think they'd painted the cabinets. And the first impression, they've got some renovation here. But it wasn't long into it. You realize that they didn't really know what they were doing.
That's one of the things I took away from Mike Holmes. Again, I know he's a TV star, but I feel like he's trying to do something better. He talks about how important the roof is, not the, bathroom sink. If the bones aren't there, you're wasting your money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We couldn't agree with that more, and that's not always the most popular thing. And to be honest, I cringe at a lot of flip houses. When we see them, you think, okay, so the kitchen looks, spruced up, but what's hiding underneath it? And we've seen all kinds of things. I don't know if I've told it on the show, but we inspected, before we were even dating, I inspected a house for my wife. She was looking to buy a house that had been flipped, and it had all new stainless appliances. The kitchen was real beautiful. The bathrooms were all fixed up, the granite, yada, yada, yada. The roof was beyond shot, like at the point where it was leaking actively.
Sections sagging.
And she didn't see that because that's not what people see when they pull up. It's not what they're looking for. There was sewage leaks in the crawl space. They replaced the exterior part of the HVAC. The part under the house was like 35 years old. You know, just all the typical things that you just go wrong. You know, we call it lipstick on a pig.
Right.
Do you ever have to go in behind people that have done halfway work? Do you ever have the need for that, or not really?
You know, when I started my career, I did. But now I don't do that. Now I've lost count 9 houses.
Okay.
One of which I'm still living in and still flipping, but that's a long-term flip, I call it. So my investing partner and I have, we're very, very close, but we've butt heads on things where he has said, you're not a flipper, you're a remodeler, because I have to do it the right way. If there's something wrong, I have to fix it. And I think he thinks that I go too far with the flip because it's more about the profit. And to me, I want it to be done right. So I'm not a good flipper, I guess. You know, I've always made money. Well, one time I didn't. But I took bad advice from a real estate agent that promised I could get a certain amount, and I put too much money into the house. But again, I can walk away from any one of those jobs and know that the home inspector is not going to come in and find 900 little things. Unless it was something I just obviously missed, like a uncovered plate in the attic, you know. I didn't go in the attic.
Right.
You know? I checked, made sure the insulation was good and there were no roof leaks. But what I flip is from the 60s and 70s, so there's a lot of stuff to miss.
Well, yeah, especially considering people get their hands on things over the years. And the older a house is, the more time someone's been in it and meddled with the plumbing or the electrical.
Right.
Or whatever. So what do you think? How do you see the flipping market right now? Is it as strong as it was a year or two ago? Or is it slowing down?
I think it's dead as a doornail. I am sitting on a flip right now, and it's a great house. There's nothing wrong with it. People love it, but there's a lot of $350,000 new houses out. So my price point is kind of killing me on that because, again, lipstick on a pig. They go into these $350,000 houses that are going to fall apart in 5 years because they can get a bigger house. They can get 3 bathrooms instead of 2. They can get bigger closets, but it's going to be a can of worms later. And they don't realize they're not. Mine's actually a better investment, but they're getting lipstick on a pig, as you said.
Yeah, that's
even in new.
Even in new, especially in new. I think I'm in a lot of custom homes, and I think there's a lot of great work in those. But there are builders, especially in this town, I'm sure every town, that do these 85 homes on one piece of property, you know, and there's a reason those homes cost what they cost.
I'm glad to hear someone else say it, and it's not just us, you know, saying that all the time. You do get what you pay for sometimes.
We see a full range, though. There are, and it's not just companies that do better than others. It's really the superintendent on those jobs, we think, that really makes the difference in the end product. So
there are some companies that
do good in the end.
Some that just never seem to be able to. But the leadership there. But then there are companies, like you said, and I don't like to name names. We're not on here to do that.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some that we've seen everything from being really impressed to who is managing this.
Yeah. You know, and a lot of times on this show we talk about, you know, the horror stories and the bad things that we see. But truly, when we see work done right, you know, those are the people we want to get to know. Those are the people that we want everybody to know about, which is one of the reasons that I guess the primary reason why we want to do this show is to highlight the people that really do a good job. So
yeah, we have a belief that, you know, the good guys, the guys trying to do work right, deserve to have a voice out there in the marketplace, and that what we have seen, and maybe you are the exception and not the rule, is that workmanship and marketing ability don't always go hand in hand.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, to kind of shift gears a little bit, you know, we see that you online a lot. That's how we found you. So, you know, we don't have any direct connection to you. We see you on your social media. How How are you using that and leveraging that? Can you tell us a little bit about your efforts online?
I got on Facebook when you had to have a college email address.
Okay.
So I started, when I was in the film industry, I had 130,000 friends on MySpace. I was very early into it. Not the earliest, because there's stuff like Friendsters that was before me. But I adapted to it very early, understanding the wave of the future. I understood very early that TV, radio, print, I don't care what it is, it exists for one reason, and that's to sell ads. Because if the Super Bowl didn't make money, there would be no Super Bowl. It's a business, it's an industry.
Right.
And exposure is so important. You have to know where to put those ad dollars. And when you pick up, let's say you're watching some, I don't know, I don't watch TV anymore, but some big show that everybody's watching. And when that commercial break comes on, what happens? You pick up your phone. You don't watch the commercial. You pick up your phone. So you've got to put your money on that phone. And that's what I've learned. I've really made it a study of, Gary Vaynerchuk has been huge, instrumental in my marketing. So that's what I've been doing, is just producing content, really documenting content, showing people what I'm doing every day. Maybe it's because I came from reality TV,
right,
and I understand that. But, people want to see what you're having for lunch. That's just the reality we live in. So I'll take a selfie of myself at the restaurant I'm eating at, and I get more comments on that than I do on, a $30,000 bathroom remodel. So
yeah, it is what it is, right?
You talk about TV ads, so most people, most businesses, especially small businesses, simply cannot afford to compete with Pepsi and Coke and all of the, the big companies. They think, well, that's what I have to do. But most of them can't compete with that. Nowhere can't even come close. No.
Yeah.
Who can, really? Small business-wise, in reality. We see people trying. We see local businesses, local roofers and that kind of thing. They're on TV on a fairly regular basis. But that's pretty expensive. So there's got to be an alternative to that, right? Yeah.
And I think social media is there. And the thing is, social media is not it's an evolving creature. You look at all the different platforms that have been out, and you've got to be willing to change and adapt to those platforms. Because like I said, Facebook was college kids.
Right.
But now I'd say 75% of my business is booked from people seeing my Facebook ads. And then you got to take a little bit of initiative and learning with this stuff, because I've talked to a lot of home inspectors that said, well, I tried Facebook. I put an ad up and nobody called me. That's not going to work. Did you target your ad to the right people? Was your ad eye-catching? There's still a media background to it that you have to understand. And the information's out there. Like Gary says, there's this really special website you can go to. It's called google.com. I learned to tile from I had a huge background in construction. Never laid tile in my life. I went on YouTube, watched like 65 videos, and started laying tile. So you can learn anything. And now I'm very in demand as a shower guy. So
would you say that it's fair to do social media, first, do a little homework on it? The information's out there, and to practice?
Practice, yeah. You can look at my stuff. Just scroll back through my Instagram and look at the evolution of what I've done. I think there's a very clear Gary V influence at a certain point. You'll see it change drastically in the past, 6 months or so, where I started taking some of his advice and listening to him and, document over create.
Right.
I
think there's an important aspect that I've heard you touch on here that everybody needs to know that's thinking about doing this, is there are really two pieces to this that we're talking about, because there's the content piece, being visible, and then there's the ad piece. And there are two different animals, right? And to be on social media, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, but my take on it is the first piece you need to focus on is making content. the ad piece can come later. You bring that in, you put the dollars behind it, but you can't just put up an ad and expect to get ROI. That's a different skill set, but you've got to start making something for people to know that you exist. Is that? Absolutely.
You have to, again, it's like he says, you got to document over create. It's not about creating the perfect ad. It's about volume, Post 15 things a day, throw them at the wall, see what sticks. You'll get feedback. You'll have 15 people like this one and 65 people like this one. Yeah. I could probably put my selfie up at me eating at Bobo's restaurant and get 40 phone calls. You have to do some market research, invest your money wisely. It costs $20, to run a Facebook ad. Throw $500 at a Facebook ad, once you've done a little, research, find out which ones work.
Right.
And try it. Try 20 here, try 20 there. See what people are responding to. Where do the phone calls come?
Right. Do you think right now that there is a platform that service guys and small businesses should be focusing on, or do you agree with Gary? You should focus on being everywhere?
Honestly, I get most of my traction from Facebook because that's where the people that are spending $30,000 on a bathroom are living. But you have to understand, especially with the legalities of Facebook that they're going through with the European Union, Facebook might become a very different beast. It may go away. So you have to be ready to jump. And I know I spoke with your wife about TikTok. I got that idea from Gary. Now TikTok started as a 8-year-old to 13-year-old demographic, but Facebook started out for college kids. So get in now. Know your marketing. Now, the same thing I put on Facebook, I wouldn't put on TikTok. Well, I'd put funny videos, my carpenter trying to catch a hammer in his pocket, or, something. You got to know your demographic. But at the end of the day, people buy things based on what their kids want, and they will drag their parents into TikTok to show them something that they like. You know.
How many stories have you heard a child sees something on the internet, shows their parent? I mean, I've heard the big guys talk about this. It was the 13-year-old or 14-year-old child that showed their parent the multi-million-dollar real estate listing that they ended up buying.
Right.
So it's not, you don't always have to be, not everything is targeted to your actual purchasing audience. Sometimes other demographics can be valuable. So you just got to get out there and try stuff. I think that's probably
absolutely
the message.
You've got a phone in your pocket. You don't need a production company anymore. I come from the world of film. I've worked on $1 million budgets. You don't need that anymore. You've got a phone. People are making movies on their iPhone. Point it at yourself, and first off, you got to get over the fear of having a camera pointed at you,
right?
Which takes some practice.
Yeah.
And record it and throw it out there. Just keep doing it. You'll get comfortable with it, But become a personality. Become that person that gets that phone call that wants you in their home. A lot of what my job is making that person feel comfortable. And they want to hang out with me and have a beer because I'm.
You're like they are.
Yeah, I'm just one of them. Yeah. But they also know that I'm going to deliver a bathroom that I stand behind, So it's.
So how do you do that? I'm just sitting here thinking about you talking about marketing to a younger, crowd or whatever. How do you transition that from entertainment to actually them trusting?
I got to get in the door. Google reviews are still very, very important. When you do get an opportunity, you gotta be very careful with it. You gotta protect your name. Every company I've ever owned was my name. I never hid behind ABC Construction, or I hope that's not a real construction company. I'm just throwing that out there. 123 Construction.
There is I did see a roofing company by that. So
that's true. I'm not blasting them. I'm just saying I can't hide. This is me on Facebook. This is me on Instagram. Right. This is me on Google. I am me, so I stand behind my name, and I've got 5-star reviews on Google, so that's part of it. I get a lot of calls because of that, and I had to ask people for those reviews because it's not something people are going to do inherently. So as long as you've done a good job, you can look at my reviews. People will do that for you because other people are in their position and they want to make sure that they're taken care of. So people take care of people. So
the economy is pretty hot right now.
It's crazy.
And good people are few and far between. So, I see that as kind of a detriment to some of the people that we talk to say, well, I really don't need to advertise, and it's because the economy's hot. So right now you build a demand, and then as things slow down, you'll still have that demand, right?
When it falls apart, if it falls apart, I hope it doesn't. I hope the economy's good forever. But we've seen recessions. We've seen the stock market tank. If it happens again, out of sight, out of mind. If the people that make under $100,000 a year can't afford renovations, the people that make $1 million a year can. And if you're in their mind, maybe you'll get that call instead of somebody else. So
that's a good point.
Out of sight, out of mind. I think perception is everything, and you got to be current and in people's minds.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
I heard a pretty famous marketer talk about that in today's marketplace, if you aggregated all industries, that it takes an average of 32 touches before someone is ready to buy. That means they have to see you on Facebook, not once, but again and again, and on Instagram, and maybe a banner ad, and maybe an email. They have to see you over and over and over again because, we are attacked, I think is the right word, by 3,000 commercial messages a day.
Right.
So for a small business to stand out, it goes back to that whole thing. You've got to find a way to stay on top of people's mind. But that's who they're going to do business with, right?
Absolutely.
Whoever comes to mind. We have a used car dealer in this area that I'm sure you can think of exactly what I'm thinking of. Spends a lot of money to make sure he's on people's mind. And maybe you can't sponsor the whole radio station or 2 radio stations in the area or whatever, but you can leverage some of these free outlets.
Absolutely.
And you can post every day. Nothing's stopping you. There's no limit. Facebook doesn't say, oh, that's it, 3 posts, you're cut off for the day.
Yeah.
So there's tons of opportunity there. I do want to hear a little bit about your perspective. So can you tell us a little bit about your background in filmmaking?
Yeah, so I wanted to be Quentin Tarantino. I set out to be Quentin Tarantino, and I started, again, like when I started construction, I was a one-man show. I did everything from the drywall to the tile. I did my own plumbing, electric. I did it all. I've always had the philosophy. So whether you like him or not, our president, Donald Trump, his father was in low-income housing building. And he had a philosophy that he could fire anybody on his crew and do the job. And he did it from what I, reading books and stuff. I loved that. That made sense to me. I can't rely on someone else to get the job done if I can't do it myself. So when I went into the film industry, I did that. I did the editing. I did the producing. I did the lighting. I learned every aspect I could. And we made a feature film in 10 days with a student cast and crew for $3,000, and it got distribution. And we're still getting Facebook likes, and it's got a little bit of a cult following. But that movie was made in that mindset. And when I went to construction, I did the same thing. So I wanted to be the best of the best. So when I started subbing stuff out, my tile guy had to out-tile me. And he's the only tile guy I've ever seen that can out-tile me. So that's the way I structured film. That's the way I structured my business now.
What lessons from professional filmmaking could you share? Maybe like 2 or 3 points that you could share to a small business wanting to incorporate video into what they do.
It doesn't take a lot of money. And that's one of the big misconceptions. I have a $60,000 student loan that I'm paying off, being a contractor, and I spent a lot of money in school. I learned a lot in school. But in 2020, almost, you don't have to do that. You can, again, Google. You can learn a lot, teach yourself. You want to advertise on Facebook? Just Google it, look at it, figure it out. You want to learn how to lay tile? Google it, figure it out. You can do it. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And that's what I learned. You know, transformers cost what, $300 million? I don't know. I've lost track with the numbers.
Huge.
But, you know, one thing they don't tell you is 90% of that is marketing. You know, all that money went into marketing, not the film. So marketing's key, I guess, would be the second thing I would say.
Yeah.
You know where to put your money. But number 3, I would say life's short. You better love what you do if you're going to commit to it for 8, 10, 15 hours. And I met a lot of unhappy people in the film industry, a lot of people that wanted to be doing something they weren't doing. They came out to be Quentin Tarantino too, and now they're getting coffee for someone, or they're moving a light, or, you know, there's a lot of pieces to the film industry, and a lot of hands have to be involved, and not everybody's going to get to be Quentin Tarantino. So I wasn't happy doing that other stuff, so I went and found something that made me happy. Life's short. Go be happy. Find anything that makes you happy. Try some stuff.
Cool. I think that's absolutely great advice. Kind of one more technical question for you. I want to make a video for my business. What's the most important aspect? Lights, camera, sound?
You.
Okay.
None of that matters. Okay. You've got a phone in your pocket, pointed at yourself. You, the person. Again, I have a cinematography teacher, Richard Claybaugh. You're probably not watching this, but he taught me a lot of life lessons, and he always told me it's what you point the camera at. It's not the camera. You know, if you point the camera, if you're sitting on a New York City street and you got a guy sitting against a wall, and you point the camera at that wall, or you turn the camera this way, and now you've got New York in the skyline. That's a cheap. You moved the camera. It didn't cost you any money. Now you got $1 million background. So what you point the camera at is key, and that's you.
Okay.
Who are you? What are you selling? Why do I want to give you $30,000 to remodel a bathroom? You know, because there's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of guys that cost a lot more than me, and the funny thing is they're using my tile guys, so they're just charging more.
Mm-hmm. Right. That is fantastic advice, by the way, about filming and all. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just taking that in. I was taking that advice in. We're about to run out of time.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of small business guys, if they go to market, I mean, it's what you see in TV and those kind of ads, is they think they got to tell how great they are. They got to paint this picture of who they are and why they're the ones to do the job. Do you think that that's the way, or is there something? What kind of content actually says the most?
Honesty. Who are you? Be you. You know. Do you? I think people want to have a beer with you. You know, they want to invite someone in their home that they want to be around. A lot of contractors may be great at contracting, but they're bad at people. And that's what this is. This is a people business. Mm-hmm. You have to get good at people. You have to make that client feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're Michelangelo with cabinets. If the person doesn't like you, if you can't sell the job, if you can't get in the door,
they'll find somebody else.
Yeah, they'll find somebody else. They're gonna give their money to the person they want to give their money to. And I have found that most of the time that has to do with who you are as a person.
I think that you can't, regardless of whether it's in your marketing or in real life, if you're not being authentic, it's going to show through. And even people don't recognize it consciously, subconsciously, people pick up on the lack of genuineness in whatever that is.
So I know you're about out of time, but what was your favorite kitchen renovation? Tell us about your favorite project.
My favorite project. Oh, I'm going to be put on blast by a lot of people. I'm going to have to say the proudest job I ever did was the one that really evolved my career, and that's Ashley and Greg Nix. They allowed me in their home to do their bathroom, and it was just a real showpiece. It got me a lot of work. Phil, right here in Kernersville, I did another one that turned out to be a showpiece. They invited me into their home. They gave me a lot of freedom, a lot of trust, and those two jobs really put me on the map, I think.
Go ahead.
And I was just going to ask, is there a place somebody can go to see those jobs online? Or
Absolutely. RogerScheckConstruction.com. Instagram, my name is Scheck Construction. Roger Scheck Construction on Facebook. Follow me, chat with me. I'm very friendly, easy to talk to. Probably too much on my phone, so you might be surprised how fast I answer you. Usually that's what I get. I didn't expect, because a lot of contractors aren't available either. Mm-hmm. And although I understand limitations, we're in a different culture now. And Darren Garcia, you know this, Solid State Tile, he books a lot of jobs because he's available. You know, he gets his bid in that day. ProStone Granite, they're my granite people. Ross Edwards, they measure granite, and 5-6 minutes after, they've got the granite quote back to the office, and Ross is calling them on the phone saying $3,000, and they're like, "Man, how'd you do that?" So customer service, you know, speed. So be available. I'm available. You know,
at least answer the phone, right?
At least answer the phone. Or I will say text. It's 2019. Gary's big into this. Be willing and available to text. Most of your clients are, and they're going to respond faster. If I've got my hands in drywall mud, I can say, "Hey, Siri, can you reply to this text?" And I can get back to you faster. Text messaging is a big deal.
Somebody's Siri heard us.
Yeah, Siri's popping off.
I heard it going off. You know, I have a friend of mine who runs a chimney sweep business, and he will tell you that the secret to his marketing has been answering the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Siri's trying to help us out over there.
She's doing her job.
Bless her heart. Well, that's about all the time we have. Did you have any more questions?
No, I'd just love to do this again because it's very interesting for us to talk to people that know what they're doing, and I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the opportunity. I had a blast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on the show. It was a real pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
So this has been another episode of the TCG Pro Show. We will be back next week with some more guests, with another exciting guest to talk about money. So I know that's always a fun subject.
That's almost as much fun as construction.
Absolutely. But thanks for joining us. If you stuck around this long, we appreciate you. Don't forget to share this video if you found it valuable. And we'll see y'all next week. Nice.